We say hello to Austin Hill, austins.bigworld.com, at Ask Austin on Twitter. Good morning, Mr. Hill.
Good morning, Patrick, with you and your listeners.
Great to have you all along. Stocks trading upwards, at least at last check. There have been some declines in recent days. We're expecting some further declines. What's happening here?
Yeah, it's been kind of a rough ride for the last several days on Wall Street, and there are some concerns. And I think really at the end of the day, traders on Wall Street are being forced to embrace the inevitable, and that is that the economy is not all as fabulous and rosy as they would like to think it is. We have a decline in oil prices. That's great news for you and I, Patrick, and your listeners, because we're watching the price of gasoline fall in most parts of the country anyway, and they will likely continue to fall. That's not so good if you're holding oil company stocks. By the way, I own some oil company stocks. I'm watching the value of my stocks decline a bit. That shakes people up. We also see a tech giant like Apple, for example, not producing as high a return as everybody has come to expect from them. So those are not crises necessarily, but Wall Street wants to think that things only go in one direction, upwards, and that's not the case. They flatline, and sometimes they decline. That's just inevitable, and Wall Street to terms with that right now.
Austin, despite this gloom and doom and disappointment, news about U.S. factory orders seems to be positive. Is that enough to correct the course of the economy overall?
Yeah, and that is a good sign. And as you and I have talked about so many times before, Patrick, with you and your listeners, we've discussed this, that at any given time for really the last 4 or 5 years or so, you could look to specific data points and say, well, see, here's evidence that the economy is really roaring back. And oh, my goodness, over here, here's a data point that says that the economy is headed into a recession. We've had mixed data for years now. It's become our new norm. This, as you point out, that's a positive thing. I'd like to see more rise in manufacturing and manufacturers' orders. By the way, the orders themselves, not necessarily the sales transaction itself, but when orders come in, that generally is a sign to suggest to manufacturers and other companies, hey, the economy is chugging along globally. We're starting to get more demand for our stuff, and that's a good thing. So this is something that interjects a positive vibe, if you will, into people's sentiment about the economy, and that's good. Is this enough to fix everything? No, it's not. It continues to be a mixed bag. We've got a lot of problems systemically and domestically here in the U.S. with our economy. Much of it comes from bad government policy. And one positive data point, well, I'll take it. Doesn't fix everything.
Austin, with this, Austin Hill, what do these sort of big global developments, national developments mean for the local business owners, the Main Street folks?
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It really, at the end of the day, part of what Wall Street and the, I guess I'll call it the investor class is coming to terms with, Patrick, is that it really does matter what's happening in the Triangle or in my hometown or on Main Street, USA. It's not just about Washington, D.C. or New York or L.A. or San Francisco. It's about the flyover country. And when things are, when we're struggling in the heartland of America, shall we say, it does impact the overall economy, and it matters to these folks. These big national and global developments, they send shockwaves, positive and negative, through Wall Street. But at the end of the day, we've got to get the Main Street USA regions of our country functioning again, operating at optimal pace, and it's just not. We've got a lot of bad government policy, bad law vis-a-vis the Obamacare law. We've got regulatory agencies that are out of control. I think we emailed about this towards the end of last week, Patrick, but the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is not a government agency, it's a private group, they published this startling report about the IRS, separate and apart from Obamacare. This has to do with the Obamacare law. The IRS has just decided that they're going to start fining local small businesses if small businesses give money to their employees so they can go out and buy their own health insurance. Now, we don't want to punish small business employers for being generous with their workers, but quite literally, that's going on. We see bashing and trashing of small businesses through the Department of Energy, through the IRS, through other regulatory groups, the Department of the Interior. We've got government regulatory agencies out of control. Washington, D.C., and certainly not Wall Street, they're going to address this until the American people wake up and tell our elected officials, rein this in. Main Street will continue to suffer. So good news for the global economy, and Wall Street doesn't fix everything here at home.
Austin Hill, Austin's bigworld.com. Austin, thank you.
Always good to be with you, Patrick. Thanks very much.
Austin Hill with us here.